We earnestly pray for your navigating presence with the organization team and all those who have been involved in assisting the team. We believe and profess in faith that you have begun the good work and you will bring it to perfect fruition. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sister. I warmly invite the Western Music Club to render the hymn, Make Me a Channel of Your Peace. It is a hymn that was written by Saint Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of our institution. Let us open our hearts and reflect on its timeless message of hope and service.
There is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And there is that true faith in you. Master, grant that I may never see. So much to be consoled as to console. To be understood as to understand. To be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. There's a spirit of life, let me bring forth. There is darkness, only light. Transcendence ever true. Master, grant that I may never see. So much to be consoled as to console. To be understood as to understand. To be loved as to love with all my soul. Let me a shadow of your peace.
Thank you, girls, for that beautiful rendition. I now request Dr. Sister Stella Mary, Principal, Stella Maris College, to deliver the welcome address.
Good morning and welcome to the 10th edition of the Annual Student Leadership Conference conducted by Stella Maris College in collaboration with the Trinity Western University, Canada. On behalf of the college community, I am delighted and honored to welcome Dr. Palanivel Thiagarajan, Honorable Minister for Information and Technology and Digital Services, Tamil Nadu, to this conference. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Dr. Imbensi George, Honorary Consul General of Kenya in British Columbia, Canada, and Director of International Engagement Africa, India and China, TWU. Dr. George has visited us on many occasions and has generously shared his expertise as a leadership strategist. A special word of welcome goes to Dr. Douglas Arthur, who has 30 years association with Trinity Western as professor and director in leadership training. I am pleased to welcome our global audience who have joined us online from Canada, China, Uganda, and Kenya. 10 years of collaboration and partnership in transnational educational leadership is truly a milestone. This edition in the series of student leadership conferences will explore how data analytics, artificial intelligence, and transcendent thinking are shaping transformative leadership practices. The topics covered in the conference are particularly relevant to youth today as they negotiate complex social, technological, and civic environments that impact their lives in multiple ways. My thanks are due to Dr. Philip, the Vice President of Trinity Global, the prime architect of this strong and sustained collaboration. The facilitated academic center at SMC, or FARR as it is commonly known, was instituted with his generous support and continues to be the hub for our joint programs such as this leadership conference and our master's programs in leadership. Dr. Lane will join us tomorrow for this conference online. Thanks also to Dr. Renuka Rajarathinam and her team at the International Programs Center for organizing this conference. I wish you a happy engagement with this unique and special conference and hope that you will benefit from its 3-day flow of valued insights and new ideas for 21st century leadership among youth. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Sister Principal, for your gracious words of welcome. We will now felicitate the dignitaries on the dais. I request Sister Principal to felicitate the Honorable Minister, Thiru Palanivel Tyagarajan. Thank you. Sister Judith will felicitate Dr. Imbenzi George. Thank you, Sister Judith. Dr. Shiny John Weiremon, Vice Principal Shift 1, will felicitate Dr. Doug Atta. Thank you. Ms. Jayapriya, Vice Principal, Shift 2, will present a basket of flowers to Sister Principal and Sister Secretary. I now invite Dr. Renuka Rajaratnam to give us an overview of the partnership between Trinity Western University and Stella Maris.
Thank you, Dr. Dolly Thomas, for inviting me to do this pleasant task of presenting the overview of an incredible collaborative journey. As I reminisce about our amazing journey of partnership Mahatma Gandhi's words come to my mind. The journey of collaboration is the quest of seeking to meet the other, to learn from the other, only to know about oneself. Honorable Minister, dignitaries on the stage, dear colleagues, and my young friends, it is indeed a pleasant duty and my task to share a few reflections on the decade-long partnership of Trinity Western University and the Stella Maris College. As higher education institutions become ever more competitive to sustain their place in the global neo-liberal education market, students and faculty are confronted with best practices adopted through collaborative initiatives and synergies. Such practices create a competitive climate that advocates for far more inclusive, cooperative, collaborative, compassionate, and empowering education, a one where we see learning and teaching as practices that enable personal, collective, and societal growth. The human element of education is at the core of the collaboration between Trinity and Stella Maris, focusing on what we can do to achieve together, involving our students, our teachers, and higher educational institutions, local level, at the global level, and relevant stakeholders. Today's 10th annual commemoration of our partnership is a milestone. It is not a resting place for us. Indeed, it triggers a springboard for forward action. To envisage a future ahead, I would like to share a brief overview of our sustainable and long-enduring collaboration. Our partnership began in 2017, embarking on a journey of exploration, seeking ways in which we were able to understand the differences and the similarities in our institutional shared values and principles, such as the importance of the inclusivity in education, a celebration and a welcoming of diversity, democratic values, and effectively addressing gender asymmetry in society, to which we are all dedicated here at the Stella Maris Institution. Over careful examination and consideration, we had planned to align our institutional interests, aiming to embrace the differences as our key learning practices and hone our intercultural competence. Leadership became the key deployment area of dissemination in fostering innovation and collaboration. Stella Maris and Trinity Western University aim to leverage and enhance global competitiveness as an empowering tool in higher education, maximizing opportunities for students and faculty in shaping the acumen of leadership skills in various disciplines. The partnership has facilitated student exchanges, faculty training, and facilitation of information, including research and academic events that promote cross-cultural understanding and friendship. A facilitated academic center, as shared by Dr. Sister Stella Mary, our principal, was instituted in 2019, owing largely to the largest of Dr. Philip Late's vision of global competency. As a master's in leadership program was launched with a vision of cultural and academic exchanges, aiming to create economic opportunities for both the countries with the support of the Canadian Consulate in India. Both Canada and India recognize the economic potential of collaborating in this innovation drive, which foresees an incredible growth and progress in the digital and research space as a viable way forward. Through our visionary partnership, we foresee a viable cutting-edge innovation space focused on advancing research in AI and dynamic data analytics to develop and leave a transformative impact across the borders. We are profoundly honored today that we are able to share these views of our future direction of this collaboration with our Honorable Minister of Information Technology and Digital Services. Thank you, sir, so much for being in the midst of us. And in our strivings and in our endeavors as collaborators, I would like to use the words of T.S. Eliot, which somewhat sort of completes what Mahatma Gandhi's words were on collaborations. We shall not cease from exploration. And the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Renuka Rajratnam. I now invite Dr. Maria Agnes Shashita, Head of the Department of Sociology, to introduce our chief guest, Thiru Palanivel Tyagarajan.
Good morning. It is my distinct privilege to introduce a leader of extraordinary vision, intellect, and integrity, Dr. Palanivel Tyagarajan, a name synonymous with transformative ideas and decisive action in public service. Sir currently serves as the Minister for Information Technology and Digital Services in the Tamil Nadu government. In this capacity, he has been a trailblazer, driving the state's digital transformation with foresight and purpose. His deep understanding of technology's potential to uplift societies has positioned Tamil Nadu as a frontrunner in innovation and digital governance. Previously, as the Minister for Finance and Human Resources Management, Sir demonstrated unparalleled financial acumen and strategic thinking. Representing Tamil Nadu in the GST Council under the guidance of Chief Minister Thiru Stalin, he made pivotal contributions to national financial reforms, particularly in critical areas like system upgrades and regulations for emerging sectors such as casinos, race courses, and online gaming. His visionary leadership extends beyond ministerial roles. As a two-term MLA representing Madurai Central, he has consistently showcased his commitment to progressive policies and the empowerment of his constituents. His work as a member of the Public Accounts Committee and the IT wing of the DMK reflects his dedication to building a transparent and accountable government. Before entering public life, Sir cultivated a distinguished global career in investment banking. His tenure at renowned institutions like Lehman Brothers in New York and Standard Chartered in Singapore equipped him with a unique blend of global expertise and financial insight. These experiences, coupled with his exceptional academic background, including degrees from NIT Trichy, SUNY, and an MBA from the world-renowned MIT Sloan School of Management, have shaped him into a leader with rare depth and breadth of knowledge. Sir's vision is deeply rooted in the values and ideals of the Dravidian movement, a legacy he proudly upholds as a third-generation leader. Following in the footsteps of his grandfather, Thiru P.T. Rajan, and his father, Thiru P.T.R. Palanivel Rajan, he continues to inspire trust and hope among the people of Tamil Nadu. With his sharp intellect, forward-thinking strategies, and unwavering commitment to progress, Dr. Palanivel Tyagarajan embodies the qualities of a transformative leader who looks beyond the present to shape a brighter future. Dear colleagues and students, it is my great honor to invite this remarkable individual to address us today. So please join me in welcoming the Honorable Minister, Dr. Parnivel Tyagarajan.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Professor, for that very gracious introduction. Dr. Dolly Thomas, who's officiating today, Sister Anita Judith Gonzalez, the Secretary of the College, Dr. Sister Stella Mary Kay, the Principal, Dr. Renuka Rajnathan, the Dean, and I think the driving force behind this conference and this partnership, Dr. Imbenzi George, Mr. Douglas Etha, the many senior faculty, staff, deans, professors of Stella, the representatives of Trinity Western University, the delegates for the conference, students from Stella. Good morning to all of you. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this 3-day event and to have the opportunity to say a few words to you. I must start by saying that on every occasion such as this, I'm reminded of the immense contribution of Christian missionaries over 2.5 centuries to the development of the educational system and the health system in what is now Tamil Nadu, and in particular for the education of women as well as for the health of women in during and before and after childbirth. I had the good fortune of giving away some degrees at the Christian Medical College in Vellore a few weeks back. And I was reminded that it's a rare medical college that is started for only women students and not for men. Most colleges are started the other way around, including colleges like Harvard. So I acknowledge once again the great contribution of the many orders and the many missionaries who have come before us. I'm happy to renew my association with Stella. I think this is the 4th or 5th time that I'm speaking at this hall, of course, with a new principal this time. It's always a joy to come here because it's such a premier educational institution. And this morning, I must compliment both the beautiful renditions of the Tamil Thai Valthu and the hymn of Francis of Assisi by the wonderful, talented students here today. I see the vision and the pursuit of excellence that Stella embodies through partnerships like with Trinity Western and others. And I think I've been here for one other collaborative event. The future, at least for the next 20 years, is going to be shaped by Indian human capital. No other part of the world has this many people with access to education. And in that sense, the collaboration that was outlined by the Dean going back to 2017 and then the joint degree going back to 2019, I think are indicative of what is going to come in the future. I know that we in the government of Tamil Nadu are in discussions with many such universities and states and countries to develop a talent pipeline from here, because we have human capital that's unparalleled because of a century plus of a focus on inclusion, social equity, access to education that is hallmark of Dravidian politics in Tamil Nadu. And so a lot of people want to come and work with us. And our chief minister has said that he sees Tamil Nadu as the #1 source of human capital in the world. And these kinds of collaborations and joint degree programs and conferences are indicative, I think, and in fact, forerunners for the kinds of things we'd like to do. I must also say that the notion of leadership is not emphasized enough broadly. So a conference like this repeatedly on the notion of leadership is very important. I had the good fortune of being a chief guest or guest of honor at two different alumni associations last week. One of the College of Engineering Guindy on the 3rd, Friday, and one my own alma mater, what was then REC, now NIT Trichy, on Saturday. And at both of them, I talked about people like us who have had the opportunity to study at very, very exclusive institutions. Back in the day when I was an engineering student, the state of Tamil Nadu had about 4,000 engineering seats. The population was probably 40% of what it is now, but still 4,000 engineering seats for something like 30 million or 40 million people, as opposed to 200,000 engineering seats now for 80 million people. So we were very privileged to get access to those seats. For good or bad reasons, many of us ended up overseas. Of course, some stayed on and became titans of industry. My classmate, if you will, Thiru N. Chandrasekharan, who graduated with his MCA degree the year I graduated with my BTech degree from REC, is now the chairman of Tata Sons and running probably the biggest conglomerate operationally in the country. And those were a few exceptions. The bulk of us actually went overseas because the opportunity set was so wide. And many of us have come back now in different ways as executives, as venture capitalists, as entrepreneurs, or people like me in public life. And I said the great responsibility for us is to help shape the future, is to drive change. That's what exclusive education, that's what unique access to insight or great minds around the world is supposed to do. It should give you this position that you can shape the future, you can drive the change, you can facilitate the development of society or your company or your organization or your institution. And so this is very important, I think, to keep in context that while we may talk about data analytics or AI or anything else, in fact, at the core of it is that people like you, like me, our great obligation is to be people who will lead change and shape the future for our societies. I would like to say that data analytics is close to my heart, particularly after I ended up on Wall Street after my management degree and went into the trading business. It was a time of transformative change in the financial markets. The whole world was becoming derivatized, and you could start creating products that had never before been imagined. And so notions like risk and risk management had to be rethought from the beginning. If you could have hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars of risk that were not exchange traded, that were never recorded anywhere, that were on your books in derivative contracts and were only binding you legally, as opposed to cash securities where everybody can see where the bond is or where the stock is or who's buying or who's selling, and money changes hands. That introduced a whole lot of new complexity to the world. So part of my career, at least in the early days of Wall Street, was really about trying to figure out how to build systems that could integrate risk from cash securities like bonds and stocks and commodity contracts and derivative transactions like interest rate swaps or credit swaps or securitized products or CDOs, and find a way to have an integrated risk view. And that's when we realized how important data is for decision making, especially in the financial markets and risk management. Unfortunately, it didn't end well. Most of you are aware that we ended up in the global financial crisis of 2008, largely driven by what I would say was securitization, globalization, and therefore arbitrage in accounting principles and how you could hold risk. And as I say, derivatization, that more and more contracts were sold over the counter with no central register, and billions or trillions of dollars of such contracts existed. I think in many ways, the financial markets are kind of the leading indicator. Now you can see all over the world what we used to do as targeted data analytics is now become more autonomous. And the term big data, the ability to basically throw a bunch of data into a place and start getting insights without having to predetermine what it is that you're looking for, is now the new norm. And AI is, in my mind, just an extension of that. But as somebody pointed out, I think a few years ago, data is the new oil. Everything is driven by data. All kinds of things that you don't even think about are being analyzed and decisions are being made. And in that sense, I'm reminded back when I was a PhD student in the social sciences, that there were purists who said that unless you started the analysis with the hypothesis in mind, whatever finding you got was not actually a valid finding. Meaning, unless I'm testing to see whether this effect is evident in the data, just by randomly crunching the data together, if I find some other effect without a predisposition, a theory, a logic, a continuity of the research to get there, it could just be noise that you're interpreting as some kind of result. In other words, there's a big distinction between causation and correlation. And if you start finding things that you have no reason to believe are causal, you're actually going to end up with a lot of negative and bad outcomes and bad decisions. We see that a lot nowadays when we go to generative AI. I'll come to that in a minute. But in the world of AI, the last 2-3 years have been kind of, in my lifetime, the third or fourth or fifth coming of AI. And this time it seems to get more traction. Certainly it gets a lot more money. Certainly the big companies like NVIDIA, the market capitalization seems higher than kind of the GDP of most countries in the world. So maybe this is the real thing. But I would say the two things that you must keep in mind when it comes to AI. The first is that though the cutting edge has evolved to where it is, the odds of it becoming ubiquitous, where AI replaces everybody doing everything everywhere, not only are they very small, but even to have a meaningful implementation of such a vision will take at least a couple of decades in my mind. I'm reminded of the fact that the robotics revolution, which started in the late 80s, early 90s, which was supposed to put a lot of people out of work in manufacturing, is only now coming to fruition. I remember my early days as a consultant in the automotive industry in the late 80s in the US. And so many things that were basic, like lifting products from one conveyor belt and putting them onto a dolly or another conveyor belt, were being done manually. And everybody was afraid they were going to get replaced. It did happen. It just took like 25 years to happen. So now if you go and look at, when I go to a car assembly plant, I'm amazed. Where there used to be 100 people in 1990, there are probably 10 people now. The rest is all mechanized. Robots have become so flexible, so capable of being programmed in any number of ways that in fact there has been massive job loss, but it took 30 years. My best guess is AI will follow the same path at worst. In fact, it may be different for a while. Why do I say that? For it to become ubiquitous, we're going to need a lot of things. We're going to need first a lot more computing power and a lot more chips than are currently being produced today. Part of NVIDIA's valuation is that the supply chain is backlogged. There's like a 3-year backlog for chip manufacture. Of course, innovation will come. Of course, competitors will come. But in fact, to get the kind of GPUs and potentially quantum computing that will help you solve these big computational and quantitative complexities is probably going to take a long time. The second is that even if you have these chips, you need a lot of data to work on. And I just opened an AI support company in Coimbatore last month. And they demonstrated to me the kind of work they need to do to take an image and parse it in a way that autonomous vehicles like Waymo or Tesla can actually learn from and therefore be capable of dealing with some situation when the car is driving itself down the road. And for literally every frame, there was probably few hours of work of a human being annotating, tagging, parsing, trying to teach the machine how to read this data, how to read this image. And so if you think about it, for the data, first of all, for the volume of information in the world to be digitized and made data, in a computer, And then for it to be annotated and shaped in a way that the machine can process it and learn from it is probably a long time away. And in fact, the head of the particular program in this company was saying that from his perspective, for it to be a totally, truly autonomous, just for that purpose, to drive, he figured if the ultimate ambition was college graduate level education, then right now they're just in like 5th class or 6th class elementary level. That's how much more development has to be done for the machine to actually learn enough to be capable of true autonomy or in that one field. Now you start thinking about things like general intelligence. And so, we're quite far away. In addition, we're going to need a lot of power, energy. I don't know if any of you have been tracking this, but the kind of energy consumed by data centers for AI is 10x or 20x those consumed for generic data centers running, standard databases and apps. And those itself are quite high consumption, which is why many of these big data companies have now committed to 100% green energy. And there's going to be a surge in the need for green energy for that. So all these together, I would say, if the threat is that it's going to replace human beings or take away jobs or become kind of its own mind in the near term, I don't think that's going to happen. But that's not to say that change is not happening, or not even to say that it's not happening relatively rapidly. So I think as a government, we basically have 3 roles to play whenever new technologies emerge like this. The first is regulatory. All of us have to make sure that new technologies are more helpful, less harmful, less susceptible to fraud, violation of rights, people's assets. The second is to create an environment where you encourage and support innovation in these areas. And the third is to basically implement them yourself in improving the functioning of government and in facilitating citizen government interactions. I'd like to say that we are doing all of that in the government of Tamil Nadu. The regulatory part first, back in 2020, when I was in opposition, the then government brought out a safe and ethical use AI policy. Tamil Nadu is one of the early states to do that. We are now revamping it to deal with, this is now, imagine, pre-chat GPT and all that back in 2020. We're revamping it to make it more current. In our government, the Chief Minister has released Tamil Nadu AI mission, which is focused on facilitating innovation and improvements in the areas of education, employment, industries, research, and medicine. Already there are a lot of use case applications, particularly in medicine, in the law, any place where a lot of memory is required or a lot of continuity or longevity is required. AI can be a big differentiator if you have the right amount of data. On the incentive and environment side, we are trying to set up new funds to support this. We want to try and get a central repository of information. We want to digitize the government's data. As you can imagine, in most places, the government is the biggest holder of data because we know everything about everybody. We know from birth to death and every certificate and everything in between. If we could find a way to digitize and make that data usable without the risk of privacy breach, then that would be a gold mine actually for innovation and for companies. Also to try and get a bit ahead of having a central computing resource that startups and innovators can get access to. So we're looking both at having a quantum computing mission here, or from the National Quantum Computing Mission, a site here, as well as find some ways to partner up with some of the bigger tech companies to get access to our own supply of high-end computing chips. In the implementation side, at the global level, we have seen many examples. In the US, they use AI to do sentiment analysis for the government, processing millions of records and trying to extract value. A good friend of mine, Raji Thomas, who owns a company called Sprinkler, is one of the pioneers in that. There's a lot of places where they use it for revenue augmentation, particularly in places like Armenia, They have found that the machine can predict where there's leakages, where there's fraud. We hope to do some of that in our own commercial tax GST area. There was a very interesting case study in Brazil where they had the machines analyze a bunch of transactions and found that over 500 officials whose job it was to monitor and kind of ensure compliance in government contracts actually owned companies that were government contractors themselves. So all these that could be hidden without having the kind of machine do its own automated assessment came to light. There are many cases in the UK, they do it for pension processing. In Africa, they do it for money laundering detection. So there's a lot of places where actually the interface between government and citizens also can be improved. In Tamil Nadu, we have already got a few cases. We have tried to implement face recognition in the school districts, the school systems, to make it much more efficient, timely, get everybody into their seats without having to go through an elaborate attendance protocol. Everybody's name is read out and everybody has to say yes. So machines can do face recognition and mark attendance. We are using AI with CCTV cameras in buses to help try and see cases of any risk, particularly to women, particularly at off times, and convey that immediately to the police. We have applied AI in the Oliver app, in the farmers support app, where we try to predict if there seems to be onset of pest or there seems to be a nutrient deficiency by analyzing images of the crops. We're using it in optimizing water supply in rural areas and checking or predicting leaks based on pressure changes in the system. One of the most successful applications has been the eParvai app under Tamil Nadu e-governance agency, which is part of my department, where we can have the machine supported by Google and the Arvind Eye Hospital system. The machine can read, scan, and detect cataracts automatically without having to go for an ophthalmologist. And then finally, we're looking at chatbots. The preliminary one is called Anil, where it's a Tamil-based chatbot between citizens and the machine, where they can get their answers about government services responded to without having to see a human being. Now, I will say the last point that in many places, governments are failing in their core functions. This is not a Tamil Nadu problem, it's not an India problem. Around the world, many governments have underinvested in their platforms, in their infrastructure, in their capability set. And so you find that the complexity has increased, the scale has increased, the number of citizens has increased, but the government's infrastructure and services haven't kept up. In India, it's a particular problem, more than most places, particularly more than rich countries, because we have a huge staffing problem. Throughout the country of India, roughly 35 to 40% of all sanctioned government posts are vacant. In Tamil Nadu and other states in the union government. And there is no reasonable likelihood these can be filled in the near future. This is not a one-year phenomenon. This thing has been building up for 10 or 15 years. And so it is really imperative that we figure out how to do more with less, particularly more with the machine and not needing human intervention. Of course, we also get all kinds of other benefits when we do that, because you remove the friction costs, you remove the risk of rent seeking, you remove the need for people to physically visit an office, you remove the complexities of personal attendance. So to me, this is actually a golden opportunity. And my hope and my vision is that sooner rather than later, leading states like Tamil Nadu will be able to use many of these innovations, starting with better data collection, better data aggregation, better data matching, and therefore through that better data analytics, and eventually getting up to the application of autonomy. And really, if you think about AI, it's just a shade of gray. We start with the machine being able to do basic analysis, we get it to do advanced analysis, and at some point, if it's capable of doing all analysis and generating its own outcomes, then you reach the notion of artificial intelligence, which means that no human being needed to pre-program for the possibility of this case scenario. Whatever case scenario comes, the machine can deal with it. That's really the dividing line between, I would say, regular computing applications and artificial intelligence. And so I think we're well on our way there. Of course, I must say that while ChatGPT and its like have added a lot of value to a lot of things, there's an old adage for those who were in the computer science field, and it talked about databases and analytics. And it was a very crude adage, but it said garbage in, garbage out, which meant that unless you could ensure the quality of the information going in was very high and valid, whatever analysis or analytics or results or findings you got from it were likely to be deeply flawed. And that I would leave you with as the biggest risk today if you use things like ChatGPT or other large language models or other generic models. In my particular case, I have two examples. I was invited to another very reputable educational institution as the convocation guest. And I was shocked to find when I was sitting there, I opened the program and it had a profile of me in the program. And the profile of me had clearly been generated by ChatGPT, because what happened, they must have asked it to go and write something about me. And somewhere along the way, it merged my identity with that of my good friend, Dr. Raghuram Rajan, who was the RBI governor and chief economic advisor, because I guess we're both Tamil. We both had the same last name. We both went to MIT, and we both worked together on various things. And so it lost the distinction. So in my profile, it had some things that I had done, and it had some things that he had done, and it seamlessly blended the two of us together as if we were one human being. Somebody had printed that without checking whether that was the right description or profile of me or not. So I thought this was pretty funny. And then I was at some other event and I was explaining this to them, and I was saying, this is the problem with the model. And somebody who was very smart asked ChatGPT again and said, this time put my name and the city of Madurai, and said, can you give a profile of this gentleman from Madurai? And this time it gave a profile where it merged me with another good friend of mine, Karamuthu Tyagarajan, who also his name is mine, who is from Madurai. Our families had 3-4 generations of relationship together. We both had been affiliated with the Madurai Meenakshi Amman Temple. And so it merged our two identities and created a profile that completely, was violative of any basic truth. So the problem with all these models is that unless you're very, very clear about the quality of the data, and if you go for something like a generic model, which is searching the whole world, then you don't have control anymore about what you get out. And therefore, I think, in fact, Guru Chandrasekhar had talked a lot, and my own additional chief secretary of my IT department has been talking about maybe we shouldn't use large models, we should use small models, and we should have very limited data sets with very limited ambitions. Because if you're in the government, in theory, every data point you have is accurate, right? From land records to birth records to education records. So if I limit myself to using the data in my data set, much, much higher likelihood I'll get accurate answers if I make questions like, is this person eligible for this benefit? I don't need a human being anymore. The machine will tell me, right? Anyway, so these are some of the cases that I just thought of. I know you have many more technical expertise and many experts due to speak during the course of the next couple of days. I'm sure you'll all learn a lot. Remember what I said, that your job is to learn, to achieve, and to be people who change and shape the way society develops. You've all been given a wonderful opportunity to be at such an elite institution or to have such affiliations. I hope you'll all get to fulfill your promise. I commend the institution. I congratulate TWU once again. And thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir, for your words of encouragement and appreciation. Your expertise and perspectives have shed light on key aspects of data analytics and AI, inspiring us to think deeper on the subject. We truly appreciate your time, effort, and contribution in making this event a grand success. Let's give the Honorable Minister a loud round of applause. We now move on to the keynote address that will be delivered by Dr. Imbenzi George. Dr. Imbenzi George is the Honorary Consul General of Kenya in British Columbia, Canada. He also serves as Director of International Engagement, Trinity Western University, and Chairperson Amina Live Foundation. Dr. George is a foreign and public policy analyst, a leadership strategist, and international engagement expert. He is a distinguished diplomat who has been instrumental in fostering robust bilateral relations with a focus on trade, healthcare, and education. He has helped create impactful opportunities for Kenya's global presence. He has helped Trinity Western University foster collaboration across India, China, and Africa. With over 30 years of professional experience, Dr. George currently serves as the Executive Director of Myert Core, Inc., and heads the Center for Global Leadership and Diplomacy in Vancouver, Canada. We are honored and delighted to have him with us this morning, and I now request him to deliver his keynote address on cybersecurity and its application in collaboration with the government agencies in Canada. Over to you, sir.
Your Excellency, Honorable Minister, I'm delighted to be here. I'm able to get opportunity. I'm delighted to get this opportunity to share the stage with you. It's truly a privilege coming back to Stella Maris. For me, back in Canada, this is a second home. I look at daughters, nieces, and moms and sisters that have become a bigger family to myself. I bring greetings from Trinity Western University, from our president, who is away this week. Otherwise, it would have appeared and sent his greetings. I bring greetings from our faculty, from our students, and together as we continue to partner our partnership, we are really delighted of what lies ahead. I will tell you stories today. I will stay away from lecturing, maybe just for 2 minutes. But times have changed. India is no longer a spectator. India is at the forefront when it comes to artificial intelligence and technology. Your country has traveled all the way to the moon and touched it and showed the world that India is not a country that was under colonial rule, but really a country that is truly advanced. You have done things that we in Canada have not done yet. One of the biggest fears that most scholars like myself, most senior policy analysts like myself are afraid of is Gen Z. Really, your generation scares us a lot. Why? Because you know a lot more than we do. And so when a professor stands up and talks about AI, ChatGPT, you just shake your heads because you're way ahead in terms of where they are or where we are. We have the knowledge, but it takes you much easier to navigate technology. And this is where the playing field has changed. You're no longer just receivers, you're partakers, you're players, you are engaged when it comes to technology. So this morning, or this afternoon, it is both an honor and a privilege to stand before you today at the 10th Annual Leadership Conference. This collaboration event between Trinity Western University and Stella Maris serves as a pivotal platform for dialogue and innovation. Today, we gather to explore a topic that is not only timely, but also transformative: data analytics, AI, and transcendent thinking of transformative leadership. In an era where digital connectivity reigns supreme, the significance of cybersecurity has never been more pronounced. As we navigate through the complexities of our increasingly digital world, the threats posed by cyber criminals loom larger than ever. For the governments of Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom, safeguarding sensitive information and critical infrastructure is not just a priority, it is a pressing necessity. With the proliferation of advanced technologies, the landscape of cyber threats has evolved, presenting new challenges that demand immediate attention and action. Cyber attacks, and India is not immune to it, can have devastating consequences, from crippling essential service to eroding public trust in governments. Recent incidents have demonstrated that no nation is immune to these attacks, highlighting the vulnerability of even most secure systems. As such, it is imperative for governments to not only fortify their defenses, but also to adopt a proactive and collaborative approach to cybersecurity. International cooperation stands as a cornerstone in the fight against cyber threats. The interconnectedness nature of the digital space means that a breach in one nation can have ripple effects across borders. Canada, the United States, the UK share not only crucial and historical ties, but also vested interests in ensuring that their citizens are protected from malicious actors. And this, I believe, is true about India. By pooling resources, sharing intelligence, and harmonizing strategies, these nations continue to create a robust cyber defense mechanism that transcends geographical boundaries. You see, students and fellow leaders, there was a time the global community was defined by Paris, New York, Hong Kong, London, but today it has changed. The global community is being defined by places like Chennai, Islamabad, Nairobi, Tripoli. And the world is paying attention. As we delve into the realms of data analytics and artificial intelligence, we must also embrace the notion of transcendent thinking, a concept that elevates our understanding of leadership beyond traditional frameworks. Together, these elements form a triad that can redefine our approaches to governance, decision-making, and ethical leadership across sectors. Last couple of years, when I've visited your institution, I have told you, I don't want you to tell the story. I want you to become the story. Because, as I've said, you are not just participants, you're not spectators. You have a vested interest in where the world moves as we go ahead. In 2012, I was preparing for a marathon. In Canada, we got a marathon called the Kananaskis. It's about 150 kilometers. It's also defined as a death run because you go up, you go down, and my colleague, Dr. Arthur, lived up in the north, so he would understand how difficult it is to make this run. I was doing weights, I was exercising, and I wanted to do the run. I was in a team of about 8 people. And I was working in the gym, lifting weights. And then I took a flight from Vancouver to Toronto. And my neck started hurting. And I finished my meeting in Toronto, and I was flying back to Vancouver, and I was getting worse. I came home, ended up in emergency. The doctor looked at me, he asked me, "What did you do?" I said, "Nothing. I was just exercising." I had torn my vertebral artery, and it was just the beginning when I was starting to teach at Trinity Western University. When you tear your vertebral artery, you have 20% chance to live. My doctor, in a small community where we lived in Abbotsford, told my wife and my daughter, "It's time to say your goodbyes." And it was tough. And I remember I had colleagues in Sweden and in Norway, and it was the beginning of nanotechnology. And so I was transferred from the little hospital to a big research hospital in Vancouver. And the first thing they said is, "We are not going to operate you because we don't know if you're going to survive." And the colleagues, specialists in Norway, asked, "Is your hospital using nanotechnology?" And these are the clot busters. Because my vertebral artery had torn, they couldn't fix it. But they wanted to make sure blood wasn't clotting going into my brain. I became an experiment at the beginning of artificial intelligence, at the beginning of technology, where they sent the clot busters in my veins and they waited. And after a week in ICU, they were taking x-rays, and my good Christians were praying for me. And on day 10, the doctors and the specialists came and they said, "We don't know what happened to you, but your vertebral is refixing itself." I never had surgery, but I understood the beginning of what technology was bringing into the world. 2012, it's 2024 today. Advancement in technology is way beyond where it was in 2012. Why do I tell you this? Because there's good parts of technology, and then there's really bad parts of technology. We know today that a young person can be sitting in Qingdao in China and create a little drone that can be flown into Ukraine, in Kiev, and explode and take a lot of lives. That drone would have costed $300 compared to the missiles that cost $100,000. So when technology is abused, it does terrible things. When I say to you, I want you not to tell the story, but to become the story, I'm encouraging you to look deep within. The knowledge you're learning here at Stella Maris, harness it, and become what we call at Trinity Western University, be the light. Transform society around you. Transform community around you. In practice, and I'm just going to skip over, when we talk about transcendent thinking, a few things come to mind. I want you to embrace diversity. Diverse teams bring a wealth of perspective, fostering creativity, innovation. Leaders who champion inclusivity can leverage the collective intelligence of their teams, enabling them to navigate complex challenges effectively. Secondly, I want you to have long-term vision, as we were reminded by the Honorable Minister this morning. Transcendent leaders prioritize long-term outcomes over short-term gains. They recognize that sustainable success requires a commitment to ethical practices and social responsibility. Number 3, empathy and connection. Effective leaders, and you're all leaders in your own right. Effective leadership hinges on the ability to connect with people. Transcendent thinking encourages leaders to practice empathy, understanding the needs and aspirations of their stakeholders. In the realm of cybersecurity, it is pivotal and it is crucial to continue focusing on the positive. You see, the world around us is always on the edge. Protecting critical infrastructure is very important. For India, it is important. For Canada, it is important. Critical infrastructure sectors form the backbone of national economies and public safety, necessitating robust cybersecurity measures to protect them from cyber threats. Key sectors include power grids, food systems, healthcare, and personal identity protection. Each of these sectors faces unique challenges and vulnerabilities, making them prime targets for cyber attacks. The energy sector and what happened in Ukraine in 2015 was just but an example. By bringing down the power grid in Ukraine, it showed the vulnerabilities of that country. Food systems are increasingly reliant on technology, making them vulnerable to cyber attacks. Healthcare, as I shared to you with my own story earlier on, is another example. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the vulnerabilities as hospitals and healthcare systems became targets of ransom attacks. Patient care and their data were compromised in some areas. But where are we going to be in the next 5 years? As artificial intelligence continues to permeate various aspects of technology, its implications for cybersecurity are profound and multifaceted. On one hand, AI introduces new vulnerabilities and challenges that cyber criminals can exploit. On the other hand, it offers innovative solutions for enhancing security measures. The next 5 years will be crucial for governments as they navigate their complex landscape of opportunities and risks. For the next 5 years, you will be in the leadership role. You are the generation that we are looking for to help us define. Where does India go after being on the moon? Which is the next planet that India gets to go to? One of the most pressing challenges is the emergence of AI-driven cyber attacks, which can automate and enhance the efficacy of traditional methods. You see, cyber terrorism groups may leverage AI to conduct sophisticated ransom attacks and other malicious activities that can outspace conventional security measures. As such, governments must remain vigilant, continuously adapting their cybersecurity strategies to counteract the evolving threats. As we embark on this journey together in the next 3 days, let us remember that transformative leadership is not merely about adopting new technologies. It is about fostering a mindset that embraces complexity, prioritizes ethical consideration, and seeks to uplift humanity. In closing, I urge each one of us or each one of you to reflect on your role as a leader in this rapid changing landscape. How will you integrate data analytics and AI into your practice, into your academics, into your social life? How will you cultivate transcendent thinking within your teams? I want to believe that the future is bright, and the potential is limitless. Together, let us harness the power of data, the capabilities of AI, and the wisdom of transcendent thinking to lead with purpose and impact. I want you to be the light. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to our discussions throughout this conference as we engage more in the workshops in areas of cybersecurity and other technology formats. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Imbenzi George, for your insightful and engaging speech. Your insights have provided us with valuable perspectives and a better understanding. We appreciate the time and thought you have shared with us today. Let us give Dr. Imbenzi George a well-deserved round of applause. That brings us to the close of the inaugural session. We once again extend our heartfelt gratitude to the Honorable Minister for his gracious presence despite his hectic schedule and for his very thought-provoking address. Thank you, sir. We also thank Dr. George and all the other dignitaries who have been with us this morning. We will reassemble for the industry and academic expert talk and workshops post the lunch break. Kindly assemble here in F21 by 1 p.m. Students, you're requested to remain in your seats till the dignitaries leave the hall. Thank you. Students, the BCA department students will be going to the JVDLC hall after the lunch break at 1 o'clock sharp. All the other departments kindly reassemble in F21. Thank you, girls. You can leave. Thank you.